afternoon. Welcome to the 862 Governance, Administration and Finance Committee meeting. We don't have any apologies for this meeting, it's my understanding. And we're going to start with no leave of absence. We'll start with the confirmation of minutes. Any questions arising from the last minutes? And if not, do I have a mover? Councillor Fowler to accept and Councillor Martin to second. All in favour? Great, thank you. Conflict of interest declarations. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. I got some advice from Council in relation to a conflict that I may or may not are declarable. It's in relation to an MCU 203 Ashmore Road, Benoa Garden Shopping Centre. What's been brought to my attention that my cousin lives in the Benoa Waters area, and she's the chair of the Benoa Waters Residents Association, and it's my understanding that she will be personally and maybe through that association raising some objections to the current development. So I thought it's important, and I've got a meeting coming up shortly in relation to a brief on this particular project. So I was advised to come to a committee meeting to raise as a declarable conflict of interest.
So perhaps if you could just state what it is that you're intending with this conflict.
Yes. So my cousin Donna Lansdowne, who's a related party under the Local Government Act 2009, may make a submission in relation to the proposed Benoa Garden Shopping Centre redevelopment at Lot 822 Ashmore Road, Benoa, as a representative of the Benoa Waters Representative Association. And I'm hoping to still be part of the process, but I want to put it through to the committee.
Are there any questions? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question on, I see it says related party, but I think it's a relative, but would you consider the party like a close personal? Because
Yes. Yes. So she comes to family functions. We go to dinners, and we do meet when we have family gatherings, and so yes, and been to weddings.
And I'll just make a note, given that I have declared a conflict regarding this matter, I won't participate in this decision. So I will leave that up to committee members to arrange. Councillor Gates?
I'm just confused about this, given if it's a forward seeking approval, isn't that necessary for full council to, can that be done just by the people? I mean, I'm not on this committee, but is it appropriate for a committee to give approval for something that comes under another committee?
Through the Chair, Councillor Gates, the advice we've had from General Counsel is that a conflict of interest can be made at any committee meeting. So Councillor Taylor is taking this opportunity to make that conflict of interest declaration here, as was the same this morning in planning. There was one this morning in planning of Councillor O'Neill's.
Oh yeah, I get that, but that was a planning matter. So I just didn't, I've never seen one made about another committee at a different committee meeting, that's all.
Yes, absolutely. So through the Chair, the conflict can be raised at any committee,
Right.
just noting that that will be ratified at full council.
Okay, thank you.
So I suppose for clarity to Councillor Taylor, would that mean that there's no engagement or action until ratification at full council anyway?
I believe that's the case.
Councillor O'Neill?
Just a question through you, Chair, to Councillor Taylor. Have you had any conversation with your cousin about this application today?
The only conversation was that she raised it to me. She had a phone call about the particular subject, which I raised that was a concern at that point. So I know nothing about the project. All I said was I'm getting a brief on it, and that's where it was, and that's where it alerted me straight away to do a conflict. My first thoughts was full council because I knew I had a meeting coming up, so I was expecting it to go to a full council. But the advice I was given was that it can come to a local committee that can make that decision for me to move forward. So I do need clarity because that was the advice I was getting, knowing I've got a meeting coming up this Thursday.
Well, I would suggest you get clarity from General Counsel after this meeting, regardless of the decision, on whether you can act before the full council. Councillor Curtis?
Thank you, Chair. And another question through to Councillor Taylor. Do you feel like you can remain open and persuadable given your close personal contacts' obvious objection to the matter?
Yes, I do. That's why I want to get the brief. The matter isn't in my direct area. I do have residents in the Sorrento area where people have come and asked some questions of a particular project because they had been in the media before this particular time. So the answer is yes, I'm comfortable that I represent my local residents.
Councillor Gates?
I'm sorry, but I have the Act in front of me. When a councillor has a prescribed conflict of interest, and one of those is if the councillor or a close associate of the councillor makes or has made a written submission to the local government in relation to an application before it is decided. So quite clearly, from what has been said, Councillor Taylor is aware that his cousin, who is close, is going to make a submission, which I would think excludes him from participating in the decision. Am I not correct with that? I read it straight from page 250 under when a councillor has a prescribed conflict of interest other.
Councillor Taylor?
I did go through this with General Counsel. The discussion was in relation to direct family members, so it does call out your spouse, your parents, your brothers and sisters. It doesn't call out other family members, but obviously that, from their advice to myself, doesn't fall under prescribed. It then does fall under declarable. That's the advice I was given.
I'm not on this committee, so I don't vote, but Councillor Taylor did say that he has a close personal relationship with his cousin and they do things together as a family all the time. So maybe the General Counsel didn't correctly interpret the closeness of your relationship. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to protect you if in fact your cousin's going to submit against something that we have to make a decision on, you might be better not in the room.
Councillor Young?
Thanks, Chair, for accommodating me. Not a member of the committee, and I've come back in specifically for this because of my concern for Councillor Taylor as well. I understood it that he's going to have a meeting on Thursday and he's seeking consent. Regardless of what this committee decides, it's finally council that makes the decision. So you'd be going into that meeting, even if this committee says, yes, you can do it, that's not a lawful position. And my personal advice, not that you've asked for it, is don't do it.
Okay, so just to be clear, the people who are making this decision are Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Curtis and Councillor Fowler. So this is your decision to make. Councillor Taylor?
Look, my intent was to defer my briefing. It was just that I went to council at the time to get advice to see if there was an opportunity, and I'm only here based on the advice from council at the time.
General Counsel's available in a little later. So how about we come back to this item a little bit later? Councillor Hamill?
Madam Chair, I think that's very advisable because I could understand if the councillor's cousin lived in the development, lived next door to the development, but I'm not aware of us ever based on an objection getting to that point. I actually think there's a differential in there of a councillor's cousin putting an objection in versus where they might live and having a gain or loss from it. So I think that would be good for the General Counsel to get an opportunity to review it once more before the decision's made.
Okay, so General Counsel's getting here as soon as she can. So we'll just defer that one and we will raise it again once she's back, okay? Thank you. Okay. So if we can have a procedural meeting to defer item 4, conflict of interest declarations. To later in the meeting. All in favour? Great. Okay. So I'll have a look at we've only got one start item on there, which is 5.1. Does anyone wish to unstar that, or any items you wish to start?
Only a mere minute, you don't.
Yes.
Question. You moved a procedural motion before, and it was just a mover. You didn't have a seconder. I thought you only needed a mover, but I think...
Again?
Do you need a seconder for the procedural motion?
Not for a procedural motion, no.
That's what... Yeah. Thank you.
So we've got 5.1 starred. Councillor Curtis?
I'd be happy to star 6.3 unless there's a desire from the committee to discuss it.
6.3, is there anyone who wanted to... Councillor Fowler, you would like to see 6.3?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. So is there anything else? Everyone's happy to star the forward planning schedule. That's it. So we will accept the forward planning schedule. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Curtis, seconder Councillor Martin, all in favour? Thank you. Okay, so now if we could invite Ms Green in for a short presentation on our latest on the policy reviews. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon through the chair. Pleased to present to you the last policy review report for this year. And as we bring you back into 2026, we will have 12 policies remaining of our current policies for review in the first couple of months of next year. There are 5 policies that we've presented to you today. The first 2 policies, I won't go through them in detail, but suffice to say we're a little bit unclear as to why these were actually ever adopted as council policies. Both of the first 2 policies being the officers' indemnity and the better protection of staff policy in attachments 2 and 3 entirely relate to staff, and our organisational policies ordinarily would be endorsed by the CEO and through our executive leadership team. So we're proposing that they be retired as council policies and left up to the administration to deal with in future as to whether they remain policies or not. I'm happy to take any questions on those ones. Thank you. The next policy relates to our banner booking policy, and this is very much like a number of policies that we've presented to you to date, in that it actually reflects a service that we provide or a process that we provide to our community. It was originally established just ahead of the Commonwealth Games back in 2018 in a way to actually guide the visual amenity of the city, but also to guide the way in which banner sites that council would lease or rent out commercially for revenue or cost recovery opportunities. We've done some research into, in practice, how this is working in the city, and what we've been able to identify is the policy doesn't add anything that's not already currently available on the city's website or through the actual booking process that's managed through our corporate communications team. So given that it's just a general day-to-day service delivery of the city, it is being recommended to be retired or consideration for council to retire this policy. The next policy relates to signage and brand, and this particular policy was established and historically a lot of local governments probably 10, 15 years ago established similar policies of this nature to guide the use and protection of use, I suspect, more so to the point of council's logo and how we actually allow people to use that and the different guidelines that are associated with that. We do have a very well-established brand guideline that is available to anyone who wishes to use our logos, whether it be, through partnerships, sponsorships, grants, those sorts of things, or other types of arrangements. And that is going to be made publicly available on the city's website. So given that it really is about the use of our logo, we are recommending that this particular policy also be retired. The last policy that's presented to you today was first presented to you, I think it was around about July or August of this year, and we were requested by council at that time to go away and do some more consultation with you, which we did, and we held a few sessions, both individually and collectively with councillors to discuss this policy. Presented attachments 6 through 9, and attachment 9 in particular shows those track changes as a result of that consultation with councillors back between the 30th of September and the 4th of October, and taking on board all of the feedback through those sessions. That's it.
Good. I might just request, I've got a proposed change recommendation. We might just get that up on the screen so that people can consider that while there are questions. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, I just had a question around the entertainment and hospitality policy. I wanted to understand the rationale of including those specific words, even if the Mayor or CEO is in attendance. I feel like it's surely stated without those words. I didn't know why. What's the rationale of inclusion of those words and why are they important?
Through the chair, it was very much just on the feedback through the consultation sessions to provide that clarity, but I don't disagree with you that they're potentially superfluous to the meaning. I'm happy to take them out.
I'll just explain this change recommendation. It's calling out what is already in the policy. It's not changing the intent of the policy, but it just makes it explicit in the scope. So for a new councillor who comes and looks at the entertainment and hospitality policy, not recognising perhaps that there's a councillor support policy. So this is just kind of in black and white, or red and white as it is here. Your first place you go to is a councillor support policy, and if that is not related, then you go to the entertainment hospitality policy. So this was drafted by Ms Green after addressing that matter and supported with the Deputy. We just thought that that addressed our concern there. Is there any questions about that? Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. My question was, through this process, when it was being workshopped, part of the conversation was, well, should the councillor support policy just capture councillors and this policy capture city staff? But correct me if I'm wrong, the Act prescribes that we must strike an entertainment and hospitality policy that covers councillors.
Yeah.
So that's why we've kind of got a little bit here and a lot over in the councillor support policy. Great. I'd second.
So just to be clear on that, if there wasn't a legislative requirement, we wouldn't have councillors in there at all, because it would be cleaner if we just had a separate policy, but they have to, so we effectively refer to this other policy and then apply. But everything we do should really be covered by the councillor support policy. Sorry, Councillor Martin.
I was just going to say I'll second your change recommendation. I think even though what you've mentioned, because it kind of trips over itself a little bit here in this policy because we're required to cover both. But I think this just gives maybe a bit more top-line reassurance that the councillor support policy is the principal policy for the business we do, and we're governed by limits there. But this also captures any additional expenditure outside that for us.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So I'm moving. Councillor Martin is seconding this recommendation. Again, Ms Green, thank you so much for the work that you've done on this and then taking us for the journey on this and consulting again. Amazing to hear we've only got 12 left. It's been a few hundred, so we're getting closer. Okay, all in favour? Great, thank you. Okay, so we might go back to item 4 if General Counsel is ready. I was going to say Jodie Counsel, but, you know. Councillor Taylor, do you want to start at the top again? Thank you. And through to Ms Sekak, just a note, I'm chairing this, but given I have a conflict on the same matter, I won't be participating in the vote. Thanks.
Through the chair, I'll let you know I was listening to the live stream, so I have a bit of the background context. Thank you.
Maybe given that, if we just ask questions through to you.
If I could just clarify, my only concern was Councillor Taylor saying that he had a close personal relationship with his cousin. I get that it doesn't actually identify that in the words of the Act as a person that he had. I forget what it said now, but it doesn't. It identifies what a close associate is, and it doesn't mention his cousin being in that category, but that was my concern, that he did identify his cousin as a close personal relationship, so I wondered about the ability of him to stay.
Through the chair, I think there's a bit of confusion with the wording of the Act. A close associate relates to a prescribed conflict of interest, and as Councillor Taylor said, that's more limited to a spouse, a parent, child or sibling. Whereas I understood Councillor Taylor to say he had a close personal relationship, which falls in under that broader category of a related party. Therefore, Councillor Taylor considered his position and it was open to him to deem it declarable rather than prescribed.
Councillor Hamill.
Through you, Chair, to Jodie, I am not aware of a conflict being put in before in regards to someone possibly submitting an objection, but even if she did submit an objection, like, how does that work? So normally we're dealing with the fact that someone lives within a proximity of a DA and may have a financial gain or loss or whatnot. For just putting an objection in, when does that become a trigger? Because I have a concern that, you know, if a relative of mine puts in a submission in against a DA in Palm Beach, does that then create a problem for me out there?
I think the other element here, did you say she was the president of the neighbourhood community? And so that group may be acting? I'm not sure.
So, well, that would be a clarified thing that should be there, because I don't think it... So that question through to Jodie about, again, so putting an objection in, when does that become a trigger? And even being part of a representative group, when does that become a trigger?
Through the chair, yeah, it can be prescribed depending on whether the councillor's made the submission or someone who is a close associate of the councillor has made the submission. So that would be the councillor's spouse, parent, child or sibling. If it's that close and they've made a submission in response to the DA, it becomes prescribed, as Councillor Gates indicated. This relationship isn't as close, so it's open to Councillor Taylor to make the assessment whether it could be presumed to create a conflict between his interests and the public interest, and therefore he might choose to declare it.
Councillor Martin.
Chair, just a question through you to Councillor Taylor. Just interested in the material gain for himself and or his related party, if there is a material gain or loss significant?
Not what I can think of myself. I mean, she's a resident that's got concerns of a project in the area, no different to many others in that particular area. So I can't see, from my perspective, what benefits for or against for myself. And I suppose I'll leave it to the floor to understand hers.
Councillor Curtis?
Thank you, Chair, and I've been comforted by the responses provided to that question and previous answers to questions of Councillor Taylor, and I'd be happy to move support for him to remain
So
involved.
would you like to put forward a procedural motion?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
With some support of some standard wording would be great. Because the nature of his interests are minor and remote, and the interest of the public interest would be best served by his participation in the matter. I'm happy with that wording, Chair.
And seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Curtis? No. Anyone wish to speak against the procedural motion? Okay. All in favour? We'll need to count the vote.
Councillor Curtis, Councillor Fowler, Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Martin, Councillor O'Neill.
Great, thank you. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Patterson did not vote. Thank you. Good, done. Oh, may I just ask one other question on that? So it's a committee recommendation now. So can Councillor Taylor meet before that's ratified at full council, or does he need to wait until full council?
Resolutions of eligible councillors in relation to conflicts of interest. So one of the rare circumstances where the resolution of committee is binding and is not just a recommendation that needs to be endorsed at council. This is something we clarified about 12 months ago. Whilst we acknowledge it at council, it doesn't have to be repeated by way of resolution at council.
Okay, so it stands as of now.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good. Well, I learned something there. Great. So we're up to 6.2, the integrated planning framework. We've got a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. This report follows an initial report that we brought to committee, I think it was about 3 months ago, in relation to progressing implementation of our integrated planning framework and a review of the city's strategy framework that we currently have in place. So just a reminder, with our integrated planning framework, essentially the city plans over 3 horizons: long, medium and short term. Our medium and short term strategy framework very much is legislated under the Local Government Act and is our 5-year council plan. In the Act it's referred to as a corporate plan, or our annual plan, which is our annual operational plan, and that's adopted in alignment with the budget. The long-term planning is discretionary for the city and for councils in Queensland. Many years ago, we were required to do a 10-year community plan under the Local Government Act, but now it is discretionary and has been a position that we move towards putting in place long-term strategies, or a long-term strategy for the city. When we first came to you a couple of months ago, we spoke about, we had previously met with all of the chairs of the respective committees, and there was a desire to continue this work with each of the committees being involved as part of that review process. So just to assist in that process, we have done a bit of an undertaken analysis of the existing strategies and plans, and this is just to show you how each of those strategies and plans align with both our council plan themes and the council committees that we intend to bring back to you for some further work in the new year, round about late February. When we bring that work back to you, basically we've got a lot of pieces underway in the team at the moment and across the city, looking at all of the existing strategies that we have, the plans, the actions that have been completed, any outstanding actions that still need to be undertaken, and doing a bit of an inventory across the entire strategy and planning framework. We've put in the report and presented to you some criteria that we'll use to start working with you on how, or we propose to you, sorry, on how we might rationalise these strategies. And then basically what we'll do is we'll start to put them back together in some clusters. And a good way that I've sort of been using to explain the piece of work that we're aiming to do here, it's not reinventing the wheel. We acknowledge that there's been a significant amount of community engagement over the last 3 to 5 years, as well as strategy development over the last couple of years as well. Essentially what we're doing is, you know, if you could imagine, we've got a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle sitting on the table. We're literally breaking that apart and potentially rebuilding it as a 5-piece jigsaw puzzle and looking to make these documents a little bit more strategic and to ensure that we can actually fund and put these plans into place for our future. We acknowledge, as I said, that a significant amount of community engagement over recent years on strategies has been undertaken. As part of this project, we're not proposing that further community engagement at this point in time be undertaken. We've obviously had significant engagement recently around the city planning scheme and all of that work. So what we aim to do is leverage what we've got available to us through the last 10 years of budget surveys, city planning, other strategy engagement to help us inform what the future state might actually look like. However, we also acknowledge that a big part of this process and a very important part for us is the engagement with yourselves and with our staff across the city who have been responsible for implementing these strategies and plans. So again, we're aiming to come back to you with a pack of information and work with you in a little bit more detail on the content of these documents in around about February of next year. I've probably already addressed this one. This is just the timeline. So once we work with you in February, we'll take your feedback. We'll go away and work it up into a new position, and we fully intend on bringing you back the revised position for adoption in July at the July GAF meeting of next year. So it's a fairly quick project for the nature of the work, but we've certainly got a high intent to get that done for you as quickly as possible before July. This is the criteria, and we're open to additional criteria as you see fit to input into this process. But obviously, first and foremost, it's really important that these strategies and our future framework aligns to community priorities, hence why we want to leverage all of that community engagement feedback that's been obtained to date. Where we've got requirements for legislative compliance, we'll make sure that that is brought forward for your consideration, as well as making sure that we maintain strategic alignment to certain other positions of the city that we need to, such as the 2032 legacy strategy, as an example. We will be giving consideration to time, not just timeliness, but certainly the time frames associated with our strategy framework. At the moment, we have a number of current documents that are out of date, as well as varying time frames for commencement, completion, and those sorts of things. So we'll certainly be looking to get some consistency across that for you as we do the analysis. Deliverability. One of the things that local governments, I think, everywhere tend to do is we put in place these strategies and plans, but we don't necessarily put in place the funding investment strategy to go with it. So we will be undertaking some assessments of that along the way and bringing back those for your consideration and discussion, as well as looking at it with our finance teams, of course. this just is an outline of the engagement, which I've already spoken to, and that's what we're proposing to do. Happy for any feedback.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I was just curious, out of the 44 strategies, are there any that, moving to 5 to 7, that there's statutory strategies in there that can't be rationalised?
Through the chair, there's the zero waste, or the net zero waste. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head. That one we are required to have, and there's also some requirements for us to have some biosecurity plans in place as well. So there's a couple.
Any other questions? No.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to move this item? Councillor Martin, seconded Councillor Fowler. Councillor Martin, you wish to speak to it? No? Anyone wish to speak? All in favour? Great. Thank you very much. Next item is 6.3. The council plans the operational plan. No presentation, right? Councillor Fowler, did you have a question on this one?
Thank you, Chair. I had 3 areas of questions, if that's okay. I'll be quick.
Yes. No, I'll take your time.
Thank you. I just had a question first around the vibrant lifestyle and why the original action to develop a culture strategy was amended to a 2-year arts and culture action plan. So I was just trying to understand what's the rationale behind the 2 years rather than like more of a long-term look at this, and was that maybe in relation to funding constraints or a shift in priorities, or an interim approach before a broader cultural strategy? Just wanting to understand that one more.
Through the chair, so obviously decision from the service owner to focus on the 2 years for now, and I think it's a combination of all the things that are happening, as you just said. So as we mentioned, looking at those measures and that strategy rationalisation. So a lot of these action plans get those commitments for long term, and then we need to actually make sure that they're working and those are aligned. So the intent, as we understand at the moment, is to do that 2 year and start to bring these things into that consistent time frame as well. So that's what we understand is the reason that they changed it at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I asked the same question, and the advice was that, we don't do the strategy. The strategy is a longer thing, so skip that for the moment. Just do the 2-year action plan until we start the next strategy. That's all right. Yep. Another question.
Just 2 more. Just on the First Nations, I just wanted to know why the action for develop a First Nations engagement framework has been moved to the One City theme. Does that affect any of the scope or timing of engagement with First Nations, and like how will we prioritise that in the new theme?
Through the chair, no, that doesn't make any difference. It's just a change under the One City theme.
And
again, I asked the exact same question in my pre-briefing, and it's a better alignment. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I kind of got out of it. It just didn't fit. It wasn't really in the right box.
And the last one was
great minds, Councillor Fowler.
I know.
Let's go.
The last one was around the connected communities and light rail stage 4. So, while obviously I understand the need to make a change, but I was just questioning whether it was appropriate to remove it entirely, and should we consider a holding statement pending the outcome of the state government's multimodal transport study? But my question is, if we're removing that altogether right now in connected communities, will we have the ability to reinstate this initiative later if strategic alignment with the state government's required?
Through the chair, so absolutely, council can decide which measures you want to report on as part of the council plan at any time. And as you know, each quarter when we come back, sometimes measures change, or sometimes the targets within those measures also change. So absolutely, if appropriate, we will work with the Transport Department to make sure that information is back in there.
Just one last point. I just thought that with everything going on with the state government and that report coming back to us, removing something that significant entirely, it felt like maybe a change was probably more relevant. But I get that we're in a holding pattern at the moment, so I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I'll leave that with the city officers.
Is there anything further you'd like to say on that to provide further comfort to Councillor Fowler?
We obviously work with the service owners, so we're happy to have that conversation with them and bring it back for consideration.
Very good. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. And I was going to mention before on that 2-year arts and culture plan, I would mention that went through Lifestyle Committee. So we did resolve that as well. There was some good reasons that they touched on. But question around the One City around customer, or the Voice of the Customer project, because is that, we had customer service, we moved to OSAT, is that program, or is Voice of Customer project something additional?
Through the chair, yes, it is part of Voice of Customer. So that was part of the Customer at the Centre program, but Voice of Customer is continuing.
So is that the OSAT?
Yes, sorry, okay. Through the chair, yes, that is the OSAT.
Yep, so OSAT's the measure of that action. And as we stated in the last committee, we'd probably like to see a little bit more detail and perhaps some other measures around that than just OSAT. But in the meantime, the project continues as is with that as the sole measure. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. Happy to move. Councillor Martin. Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Martin, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you for the quarterly update.
Profound and succinct. Excellent. Any other comments? No? All in favour? Very good. Excellent. Thank you. Good. So we've got a procedural motion for the next item that 6.4 be deferred to a future governance committee meeting. There just needed to be a little bit more consultation with our planning team before we make decisions on that one. So I'll move that procedural motion. Happy to have a seconder. Councillor Curtis, all in favour? Thank you. Done. Okay, whizzing through. We're making up for planning today. 6.5, the September monthly report. Are there any questions to start with? Questions or queries on this report? Going once? Councillor Martin.
I remember last meeting or the meeting before, we were looking at the previous updates, and I think depreciation was moving around a lot. So, and I'm trying to find my notes here, but just wondering if that is starting to settle down or bed in, and if there's any sort of commentary you could simplify for us on that.
Yeah, through the chair. So you'll see on page 194, our full year budget for depreciation is 411 million. In the item 7.1, which is our budget review item, we do have a variation to our depreciation to up it slightly. We are forecasting that depreciation will come in slightly higher at this stage, around about $420 million. We are undertaking a review to make sure that this forecast is sufficient, with that review information to come back after December.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? No, I'm happy to move. Seconder, Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Great, thank you. So our next two items are closed session items. So I move that we move into close pursuant to section 254J, part 3 of the local government regulation for consideration because of that it relates to the local government's budget. All in favour? Great, thank you. Second. streaming back on. Councillor Fowler, you've got a slight amendment in there. Would you like to move this item?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Seconder?
Hang on, you've got to get the wording right.
We'll just check the wording first.
Okay, so we're just changing the wording to reflect that the budget for the bulky curbside waste collection is for this financial year, and we'll review it again at next budget. I'll just take a minute while that wording gets up.
With a review to be undertaken for the 26-27. Sorry.
I think the wording that Councillor Fowler just gave is better.
With a review to happen at 26 for 26-27. What was the word?
With a review during the 26-27 budget deliberations.
With a review to occur during the 26-27 budget deliberations, and then remove the rest. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, it is. Yeah, being under pressure, typing. Glad that's not my job. Okay, do you wish to speak to this item, Councillor Fowler?
Well,
we need a seconder first.
Yeah.
Seconder, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I don't really need to speak to it. Obviously, we've just had our quarter budget review. It was in confidential, so there's not much that we can say. Just that amendment to 4 was just that we will be reconsidering our bulky curbside waste collection service at Special Budget Committee for the following year.
Anyone else wish to speak? I thank committee members for their rigorous attention on these budget matters. All in favour? Great. That is complete. Okay. Our next item is also enclosed. So again, I move that we move into closed pursuant to section 254J part 1 regarding the local government's budget and negotiations relating to a commercial matter. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wilkinson, all in favour? Thank you. Okay, so our last item of the day, 7.2, the commercial leasing opportunity. It is a closed item. The recommendation is on the screen. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Curtis, seconded Councillor Martin. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Curtis? Anyone wish to comment or speak to it? No? All in favour? Great, thank you. I believe there are no general business items, so I will declare the committee meeting closed at 3:23. Thank you.